Welcome to Kids Matter. I'm Dr. Elisa Minkin. As a pediatrician, mom, and grandma, I understand how challenging it can be to help our kids grow into their best selves. We are so much more powerful together. Here, I will be sharing the knowledge and wisdom of a wide range of people who understand and care deeply about children. I'm hoping for your input as well, because kids really do matter. They are our future.
Welcome back to the Kids Matter podcast. I'm really honored and really excited to have a really special guest today, Robin Isman. Robin Isman is a licensed therapist, parent coach, and leading expert in childhood anxiety. With over a decade of clinical experience, Robin is the founder of Parenting the Anxious Child, where she specializes in helping families move from overprotection to empowerment. Oh, how much do I love that. He is a certified provider of space, supportive parenting for anxious childhood emotions, and evidence-based treatment developed at Yale, Dr. Eli Leibowitz, that focuses on changing parental response to effectively treat anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder in children. Through her coaching programs and online community, Robin teaches parents how to break the cycle of over-accommodation and build lasting resilience in their children. A mother of three based in the greater Boston area, Robin blends her professional expertise with personal insight to provide practical, compassionate strategies for the modern parent. You can find her resources at theanxiouschild.com or join the community on Instagram at Parenting the Anxious Child. And she is also the host of the awesome Do Less Parenting podcast. Links will be in the bio. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited. I literally hunted you down as the person I needed to interview to follow up my interview with a child psychiatrist on childhood anxiety. And I'm going to ask the listeners to please listen to that one first, because we are not going to repeat that information. The child psychiatrist has one lens. We talk about the basics of anxiety and we talk about medication there. We will not be talking about medication here. We will be talking about a specific therapeutic approach and adjacent topics, including, I'm going to tell people up front, just so you don't leave us too soon, pathological demand avoidance. We're here for that too.
We are.
So thank you so much for joining me. I want to start with the role of parents in childhood anxiety, because we alluded to that you're a space therapist, and we're not blaming. I always have to say this, we're not blaming, we're not shaming. But I actually called my talk with the child psychiatrist Our Anxious Generation to reflect that anxiety is basically everywhere. And that includes in parents as well. So I want you to start with the role of parents in childhood anxiety.
That is a very easy segue for me. The way Ellie Leibowitz explains this when you do the SPACE training, so SPACE stands for Supportive Parenting of Anxious Childhood Emotion, and it's the only evidence-based program proven to decrease childhood anxiety by working with parents. And the way he talks about it in the training is that anxiety is interrelational. So we think of anxiety as living between the parent and the child. We don't think of anxiety as the child has anxiety or the parent has anxiety. We actually, while those two things could be true, we actually are treating an anxiety that is being impacted between them interrelationally. So we know that the child has anxiety. That's why typically the parents are seeking support, but we don't teach parents how to teach their child anxiety strategies. We use the parent as the tool for change, as the conduit for change, because there is so much evidence that shows there is a direct impact on parenting and then how your child is able to regulate, decrease anxiety, moods are impacted. I mean, we have obviously for biological reasons a huge impact on our children. So why wouldn't that be true with anxiety?
I love that so much. And I will say that it doesn't matter whether the parent has an anxiety disorder, whether the child has an anxiety disorder. What you're focusing on is bringing the two together in a healthy way, right?
So according to, obviously to have something be evidence-based, you have clinical trials. So everyone in the clinical trial had an anxiety disorder. They had a diagnosis, because that's just science. You have to do that. But anecdotally, when we treat people in therapy, or in coaching or through my online space, you really realize you can use this with people who do not have official diagnoses. We don't have to pathologize everything in order to see progress. Sometimes you have a child who presents very hesitant to try new things. Maybe they're nervous about talking to people. So we might call that social anxiety, but they might not fit a diagnosis for social anxiety, but we can still support them in that same way. Same thing with phobias. You know, we might have a kid who has a phobia of something. That doesn't mean we have to go through a whole process of getting a diagnosis. We can still figure out as the parent how to support them in that way by not overly accommodating them and overly protecting them, but supporting them compassionately. And that's the beauty of space, which is we don't just overly push them and demand things of our kids, but we do believe in them. So we believe their emotions, we believe their experiences, but we also believe in them. And that's the crux of what we're doing.
It's a really good explanation, and I want you to get more granular and tell me. Let's start. I'll give you a story, okay? Because I read a story in a magazine, and it bothered me so much. I wrote a letter to the editor.
Oh my God.
And the story,
I love that.
And the story was it was a made-up story, it was a fictional story in a parenting magazine, and it was that the parent was upset because the school was going on a trip to a water park, and didn't they know that their child had a phobia of water developed 9 months ago when they saw an accident happen at the water.
Oh.
And the child was rocking in the corner, not going to school, and the mother was yelling at the school staff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I want to know what you would say. What I would say is basically what you say, which is, why is this parent not getting support to manage their anxiety?
Right. So the first thing that I would say is, and I know you would do this also, is full of compassion. So I've worked with so many parents that the root of an anxiety or a phobia is from trauma and from true traumatic experiences, losses. You could have a child who presents with very severe separation anxiety because they lost one of their parents died. And of course, that is feelings and emotions are always valid, but that is, we'd say that's very valid. Of course, there's a true fear that it has arose from losing one of your parents. Or if there's you witness a traumatic accident, I've had this happen with people who have been in car accidents. There could obviously be a water piece, or if you could have medical trauma. And so that from there you develop phobias, aversions, avoidance, all of that. So first of all, you start with complete validation and compassion of like, of course we got here we came by this reasonably, you know?
You're validating.
Totally. But I just want to really emphasize that at no point do we dismiss the anxiety or the experience. And I really actually think that's so important because people think that we are swinging the pendulum by having expectations of our kids and believing in our kids to the point where we're dismissing their experience. But I spend so much time, I hope you can hear in my voice, like I spend so much time validating the experience and truly believe them. When my children say, I feel anxious, I do not say, oh, why, that's so silly. I say, oh, that's so hard. You know, I really believe them. So with a situation like this, with this story about a child experiencing a water trauma and then being expected to go to school or to a field trip, of course, that is an incredibly valid experience. Now, I argue that the more concrete and valid the root of the anxiety is, I actually think it's more important that we do the work of not overly accommodating the child, because that brain is so sure there is a danger that we have to work even harder to convince it. I don't love the word convince, but we have to work even harder to model that we can still do things even while we have this fear. And it will go to that place of avoidance even easier than someone that maybe didn't have that trauma. So it's even more important that we practice these skills and that we model for our child that, yes, we believe you that this is so scary, and we believe in you, in your ability to work towards overcoming this fear. Because if we don't do that part, avoidance is the only option. Like what I often say to people is the opposite of doing this work is never going anywhere. And it starts slowly. Okay, don't go on one field trip. Fine. Who cares? I don't care if my kid goes to a water park. There are so many things my kids do that I don't actually care that they do. But what's my driving, conviction is don't not do it because of your anxiety or your fear or your hesitation. If I had my choice, my kids would be in no activities. They would play around. They wouldn't go to school. I believe in, like, besides the killing part of it, I believe in Lord of the Flies. Like, I want these kids running rampant. I love that. But sorry,
my eyes are bugging out.
I know. Obviously, that's like a dramatic thing to say. The point is I actually am not so like rigid into like, we need to get our kids to do blah, blah, blah. But what I don't like and feel so strongly about, which is why I'm so passionate about this work, is that what I want to drive them is not their anxiety. So what I think of is like, yeah, it starts with a field trip, but then what happens at a summer camp? I mean, summer camp typically involves water. Okay, so is your kid not going to camp anymore? And then what happens when they grow up and their friend has a pool party? Or like, there's so many places where water is going to come up. And typically phobias don't always stay around one topic. So if water can be dangerous, cars can be dangerous, walking down the street can be dangerous, and bikes can be dangerous. There's so many ways our brains can make sense of how to stay safe. And so to go back, I know I went a little weird here, but to go back to what you said, I start with compassion, always validation, and I parallel the experience that I want the parent to do with the child with the parent. So I'm validating, but I'm also believing in them that we can support the child. And then what we do is we figure out where we can decrease the accommodations, but still support them. So if it's a very recent trauma, we're not saying, well, sorry, you're going on the field trip, bye. We might say, can they go to part of it? Can they go if I go? Can they go but not participate in the rides? Can they go maybe if I drive them? Like we find ways to work to send the message to the child very explicitly. We're working on this fear so that the fear and the trauma isn't controlling your life. And the anxiety isn't controlling your life. And that's the goal. And to be angry at the school is a really missed opportunity, because it's saying, how could you cause my kid? And that's not, I don't like when people go down this road. It's not even that it's not realistic because they're going to meet someone who can't accommodate them. It's actually just not good for them. It's not good to learn that after you've experienced a traumatic thing, the only way to be okay is to avoid the traumas and the triggers, because life is just full of them.
So I want to say a couple things. I love everything you're saying, but I want to say a couple things.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, the mother wanted the trip to be canceled for everyone. Not only did she want her child to not have to face it, she wanted everyone to get a better reward, because the trip was supposed to be a reward. And people wrote in saying, oh, it's not fair. We have to accommodate everyone. The mother said, what if my child were in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to say to that, but I don't think it's the same thing.
I think that what happens is we go too far with obviously I'm a huge advocate for mental health, and it's like my whole life is this. I think that even if a child, or when a child is in a wheelchair, though, like, I don't know if that is reality, that an entire class wouldn't go to something. Like, it's not that I don't agree that it should be treated as a true, I don't want to say the word disability, but a true need. It's not that I go down the road saying this fear is not a true need. If we want to say, it could be as prohibitive to have anxiety as it is to have a physical disability. That it truly can be. People who are truly agoraphobic are not leaving their house. People who have crippling OCD their days are completely destroyed. So there is a reality to that. And even with that, we have to work within, okay, well, what's good? How do we help this child by scaffolding the experience? And I would hope that people would do that even for someone with a physical disability. Like, okay, so what reward does that child need? I also think the reward thing adds a little bit of a piece, because I want the child who's struggling with anxiety to feel rewarded. So that's a little sad, because then, what is their reward? But either way, we don't want anxiety to be the reason that someone can't attend something. That's the biggest thing. And we don't want to blame the world for that.
That makes sense. Yes. So, there's many solutions to that particular dilemma, but I just want to say, the other thing I wanted to say is that child might not be capable of attending that trip in any shape or form. And when we talk about scaffolding, we're not asking a child to go beyond their current abilities.
Yeah. So you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, I want to know how you stretch that.
Yeah. Well, I would work with the parent on, is this what we work on? Like this exact field trip? Or do we say something more like, okay, well, how can we make this day special for him, not at the field trip, but also continue to work on building tolerance to these fears? So sometimes it's not about going on that specific field trip because maybe it's too soon. We haven't had a chance to work on it. Maybe it's too big for whatever reason. And so we say, okay, this one we're going to, we're just going to say why, like it's not going to help them. It's going to make them upset and probably, like I said, feel sad because they're not getting a reward. So, okay, what can feel rewarding? Meet the need of the goal. The goal is to reward the children. What will feel rewarding to him? And I would be educating the parent on how avoidance is going to make your child more and more avoidant. Avoidance breeds avoidance. And breeds anxiety. So while we might not get to go on that field trip, I would be reframing the approach overall. This comes up a lot with schools with fire drills. And I have this really visceral reaction to schools who give parents a heads up about a fire drill, because that is an example of something where I understand the concept, and I've worked with families where the kids have not wanted to go to school because of fire drills. So you think, okay, easy fix, we'll tell them about the fire drill. But then it's just such a slippery slope. And sometimes there really is a fire that is not a drill, or maybe it's a tripped system or something. It's not always planned. And so that's an example. People often will be like, okay, well, how do I get the school to accommodate this thing that feels really minor? But then what we're not helping our kids learn is how to tolerate uncertainty. Instead, I would be working with kids, parents and kids and schools on, what is it like to sit somewhere when you don't know there's about to be a fire drill? What is that feeling in your body? How do we manage that feeling? Because that's going to happen in a lot of settings, and we could solve the fire drill problem pretty easily, but we can't solve the feeling of the uncertainty, because that is going to exist somewhere else. And we can't call every single person you've ever come in contact with and say, let me know if there's going to be a sudden loud noise. That's not something we can do. And when we model that, we're requesting people to accommodate and tell us when there's going to be a fire drill so the kid can stay home or they can wear whatever it is, so that they can prepare. When we model that, we are saying, yes, that uncertainty is really dangerous for you, and I'm going to solve for that so you don't have to experience it because it's so dangerous to you. And it's not so dangerous. Danger is different than extreme discomfort. I am not saying, people will respond to my posts sometimes saying it is painful for the kid. It is. And I truly agree and believe them. I do believe, I have a kid who has sensory sensitivities. I understand it is not something I take lightly, and they will not die from it. And I really want to help them build tolerance in whatever way they can, so that they understand the difference between danger and extreme discomfort. These are different things. And I need the kids and kid to understand they are different.
It's really, really important. And I think there's a balance between accommodating needs, like accommodating sensory needs, and you can't fix the world to accommodate your child. And so learning how to deal at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time. We're not minimizing any of your child's needs as we're trying to help them function.
That's
a really, yeah.
Sorry, I know I feel too passionate. It's hard for me to wait.
Too.
Also, both cultures I'm from are very verbose. So
Italian and Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. So but what I was going to say was, I always hesitate. I dance this line of doing the narrative of this isn't sustainable, where they're going to go in the world and we can't always accommodate and all that, because I actually want the driving motivation or behind this work to be that it's actually not good for your child. It's not that I actually, sure, they actually could set up a life that is pretty accommodating. They could, especially now, you can work remotely, you can keep your camera off in a lot of jobs, you can have your headphones, you can be as picky of an eater. I mean, I know it's very hard, but you can create a really comfortable life for yourself, and you will miss out on a lot of things by not building that tolerance. And so I want parents to know that we're not just doing it now because it's well, you're going to throw them in the deep end in 5 years or whatever, 10 years. I actually want people to know that this is just how the brain works. The brain can grow in tolerance. And so I want you to give that gift to your children. I don't want you to make them all this. Also, people will say we want kids to act all the same and we're trying to get them all to be neurotypical. And that's not true. You could do lots of stuff. I want them to know I am capable with the right tools of doing things that I want to do. That's all. That's it. If I could summarize my goal, it would be I am capable with the right tools to do what I want to do, to try what I want to try. That's it.
I'm going to tell, I love that. I'm going to tell another story. There's a movie called Thelma, highly recommended. The actress, I think, is June Squibb. I think she just got an award for the first time, or a nomination for what, at 96. She's really amazing. And the grandson in the movie is a failure to launch, like 20-something guy. And at one point he just throws up his hands and goes, I can't do math. It is so terrible for self-esteem for kids to not have that competence, and having the competence is where, right, they're going to feel better about themselves and function better. So obvious, but I think the acceptance and the tolerance of tolerating your child's discomfort and skill deficits is the only way to get there, right?
Yeah, and I think that it's tolerated because I'm on social media and I'm writing posts all the time. I'm always just, the words become mush in my brain, like the words like tolerance and capability and capacity and all the words. And I really think about these words and I think, what does this mean? And I think parents get lost thinking, if I try to teach them to tolerate more, I'm dismissing their experience and that their pain is real and I need to validate that pain and therefore not cause them more pain. But pain, I don't love using the word pain, but pain/discomfort is often the pathway to growth. I'm not trying to cause pain. I don't love that. But the discomfort is, I don't know, we don't really grow in the comfort zone. We survive. We maybe some people will argue that you connect better when you're comfortable. So that could be. But we also connect more deeply when there's conflict, when there's discomfort, when we push each other, so there's this feeling, I think, in a lot of parents that if you are pursuing things that are threatening to your child, we use these big words like threatening, danger, pain, and it has led us to be just like compassion is the only goal. And it really does lead to a decrease in competence, a decrease in confidence, because they are looking to us to believe in them. And if we are saying, honey, you're right, I fully believe that you are just unable to do this, period. So we're just gonna, take a break from all of these things. That they believe us. Like they believe us because we're their North Star,
Absolutely. And I can't wait to talk about PDA anymore. That's a great segue into what is called pathological demand avoidance. I don't know if you want to first just define what it is.
I mean, I want to make a very clear statement, which is I'm not an expert on PDA, pathological demand avoidance. I have not spent years studying it. I think it's important that in America, so I'm in Massachusetts, so it's not recognized in the DSM. We as therapists, and people in the parent world, we know about it very deeply because we have had many people come to us, and I say we because I've talked to so many people about this, is that so once people start coming to you with descriptions of their kids using labels, you should do your due diligence and get education around that thing. So I do not dismiss it. I don't say, oh, that's not a diagnosis or anything. I dove right in and I believe people. I believe their experience. And so there's two ways people describe it: pathological demand avoidance or a persistent drive for autonomy. It's described as a nervous system disability, and it really just highlights that the nervous system's drive for autonomy will trump any other demand, even if that demand is a basic need or a survival need. So meaning that drive for autonomy will win over eating. It will win over going to the bathroom. It will win over showering, going to school, listening to your parent, whatever it is. Like the drive for autonomy is numero uno of survival. And so when you have a kid who fits the description of PDA, you are thinking about how to support them in a way where you understand that need for autonomy is pervasive, and you can't just create sort of a behavior plan or something like that, because that survival need for autonomy is going to be what wins out in the end. So you're going to end up just kind of shutting down. They in the PDA world, they call it burnout. So people call it burnout. So that's my best way to describe the experience without infusing it too much with my
take. I want your own take. Don't be afraid.
I'm going to give you my take. Alyssa, you told me this is not going to be a provocative podcast.
Intentionally, but I'm sorry. The reason I'm saying that, okay.
Yes,
I'm a pediatrician. I'm also not an expert in PDA. However, the way I see it is a lot of people are self-diagnosing themselves or their kids on social media. They do not necessarily have, all of these people do not necessarily have a persistent drive for autonomy, but they are very demand avoidant. And I think there's a big difference between the way it was originally described of kids that are getting labeled as such, because they're tough kids. And I'm just going to say, this is my notes. This is and I want to hear what you think about this.
Totally.
It is because we don't have an evidence base for it. I think we have to really have honest conversations. We can't just have consensus and say, okay, consensus should not be confused with evidence. So,
right.
Wait, I'm not going to give you a turn to talk, but one minute.
Oh no, you go. I want to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think that PDA is avoidance from anxiety. I have to make that clear necessarily. I think that PDA kids are, 100% on the neurodivergent spectrum. They may have ADHD, autism, or both. I don't know if there are any that are meeting that who don't. I've heard that it's considered to be a profile on the autism spectrum. Again, we don't know. And certainly the kids who are getting self-diagnosed or diagnosed by their parents as PDA, who are demand avoidant, can certainly just have ADHD, I think, or some other neurodivergence. Okay, so I don't think they just have anxiety, or they may not have anxiety, but I think probably most of them do. And so I think the avoidance anxiety cycle that you described before is relevant. However, I think that anxiety can come from skill deficits. And I think in these kids, the reason they're so hot under the collar, right, they react, the way they do, is because I think they tend to have a lot of other skill deficits, and each kid will be different. You've seen one kid on the spectrum, you've seen one kid on the spectrum. So it could be self-regulation, frustration tolerance, too much screen use that they don't want to get off. Like I think you see a lot of PDA behaviors with kids who are on screens a lot, because screens are, and I don't believe they're regulating, okay, but they are definitely very, very dopamine inducing. They're planning all kinds of skills, social skills. And then I think you see this PDA behavioral pattern. That's how I look at it.
Right.
And I think you have to fix the skills. You can't just keep talking about how dysregulated they are, and how demand avoidant they are. So your turn.
Right. Yeah. So I'm certified in SPACE, supportive parenting with anxious childhood emotion. I'm also trained in parent management training, which is more of a behavioral approach. I actually didn't even send you that in my bio because I do use it, but SPACE is just my niche. But the reason I just said this is because there is so much evidence that shows that authoritative parenting, when we say authoritative, we mean compassion plus boundaries. We mean, validation plus boundaries. So we're basically authoritarian is more of, the dominance and I don't know what other punishments, things like that. And then the way it's skewed permissive parenting is more of just let everything happen, permission, and people you can totally look these up. But there's so much evidence that shows that the gold standard of parenting is authoritative. We both need to have compassion and validation for our children, and we have to have boundaries and expectations. So what scares me about you brought up social media. So with PDA, the problem is not that we don't believe PDA exists. It is a diagnosis in other countries. The profile of it 100% exists. I see people, I talk to them, I validate the experience, all of that. And we actually have evidence if you take the label out, but just the profile, that kids with this profile have been successfully treated with other things. So parent management training is a way that parents with children with profiles that are similar to PDA profiles have had great success. PMT is 92% effective with ages 2 to 15. So it's we have evidence-based programs. With space, it is specifically about anxiety. So like you said, with demand avoidance, you have to kind of think about where is that coming from? Is it more of a sensory piece? Is it a biological thing? What is going on? Is it a skill deficit? Whatever it is. But we know that when we validate but also continue to have expectations, that is a proven strategy to support kids through hard moments, through hard things. And the scary part about social media is, one, PDA, if you talk to someone who truly believes that PDA exists but understands it more globally, it is rare. It is not, and on social media, it is not rare. It is everywhere. It is not rare, it is everywhere. It is, people are just falling all over themselves. Like it's so hard. It's so hard to talk about this without getting really passionate and emotional, because it has been really difficult to watch people whose kids do not fall into that, most likely, and maybe have ADHD, severe anxiety, a phobia, OCD. OCD is so stealth. OCD, you could have a kid who has OCD, and that OCD could be controlling every day of their lives, and it will look like they're demand avoidant. And if you don't know to look for that, and you're not believing evidence-based strategies, you will miss it. You will miss what's happening, and you will think my kid is, and then you will. So, and then the challenge is that the current narrative on social media is to decrease demands, lower the demands, remove demands. I do believe that the people doing it accurately are scaffolding demands, but a lot of the narrative on social media is let your kid be on screens as long as they need. It will regulate them, bring them whatever food they want. There's, just do what they want, basically, because that's what will reconnect you. And then once you're reconnected, their nervous system is safe. And so then you can continue to build expectations. If you take a kid who is anxious, has OCD, has ADHD, and you put them on screens, or first of all, you give them this level of avoidance, the accessibility to this level of avoidance, you are making these diagnoses worse. And so that is very scary to people who, like me, who follow evidence-based strategies, who see anxiety go down and see OCD go down and see how families can come out of these dark places. And then, but if they went down this road, it would just get smaller and darker. So that is scary. And then also the point about you could be missing it. And then we have to touch on the screens. The screens themselves can be the root of a lot of the issue. And I don't think people give that enough credit. I know people in the world that I'm in and that you're in, that, this is what we talk about. This is what we learn about. This is what we read about. I mean, this is like my whole life is this. But if you take a kid who struggles with ADHD and you think, oh, they are demand avoidant, and you say, oh, I'm gonna just, meet them where they are, give them access. I mean, I have a child like this. And if I just gave him access this way, his ADHD would get so much worse. The way his dopamine receptors would develop would be so harmful to him, and his demand avoidance would only get worse. And you even see it in day to day. Like, you see how they're calm, and then when you take the screen, people will say screens are regulating because they're calm in the moment, but that's not regulating, that's distraction. And being calm and being regulated are not the same thing. Being regulated is being able to actually be dysregulated and to be able to use tools to be able to, I hate to keep using the word regulate, but it's not actually about being regulated. It's about being distracted. It's about being calmer. It's about being easier. It's a very difficult thing because I understand it. I also, just to insert compassion, if anyone who hates me is still listening, is that
I was going to do that for you, but
I understand. I try really hard. It's hard when I get on this because there is, I want this to be good news for people, that when you learn how to approach your kids' demand avoidance, anxiety, phobias, you have the power in yourself to make a change that you have control over that has a huge impact on them. I don't want that to be bad news or blaming. This is good news that we actually, because we can't control our kids, we can't make them do things, but we can control ourselves. So, and I want to have the compassion because, again, in my own lived experience, and also just from knowing so many different families, some who have presented with the PDA profile, we can support them in a way that helps movement, but it is so exhausting and hard, and it feels so good when your kid is calmer and when you can sit next to them and not be fighting, and you can feel like for 5 minutes they're enjoying themselves. And so I understand how this happens. I really, really, really viscerally get it. It's painful. Like, these parents are, it's not even like this is their goal. I mean, it's painful to see your kid I think, to be in a room on a screen, or not eating food that feels good for them, or not going outside for days, or, I don't think this is fun for anyone. And so I want to have so much compassion. I just want people to know there's another way, and that the social media narrative doesn't have to carry all of it. And we can actually rely on a lot of these evidence-based programs that have been around for a really long time to use.
So I'm going to bring it up. To me, it's the elephant in the room, and that's access. Okay.
It's what? Oh,
It's
access. I know.
Access. And the problem is, I looked you up on approved space parenting, like one of 10 in the country. Okay.
There's a
People
ton
who
of
at least took-
there's a ton of trained people. There's not a lot of certified people. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
But where do you find the list of the trained people?
Space treatment dot. Oh gosh, I'll send you.
I went there. I only saw 10 names, including yours. But
If you
my
look at
point is
trained
Yeah.
versus certification, there's different lists. Go ahead.
I wonder if they're available in universities at like a lower cost.
So I will say, I'll give a pitch for this for sure. There's a lot of centers, I know in Massachusetts, I would have to look at other states to know, that have adopted space. So like we have not community centers, agencies that they'll have space trained providers, and they run groups, and they have people. It's a niche, so there'll be a wait list most likely, and there's also some space providers that take insurance. Like, it's not impossible, but of course, access in so many ways. Access in actually finding them, but also in knowing about it. Think about like how you even come across something like this. It's because you are maybe doing the research. That means like, okay, so do you have time to do the research? You have resources to do the research. You have time to take your kids somewhere. It's also the investment of working with someone as a parent. I have to see parents during the day on Zoom. That's an access issue. Not everybody can go on Zoom to work with their parent. I mean, the access is a huge problem.
Really seductive. The PDA narrative is really seductive because it feels good in the short term. You see your kid happy, you get peace, they get peace, but it's not the long-term solution.
Yeah. And I do want to add that just because I know a lot of these parents, I don't even want to say that they see their kid happy. Sometimes they're happy, but also it continues to be painful. But like you're saying, it is relief. It is short-term relief of fighting the system and working so hard and all of that. But a lot of parents, while that's happening, they're working so hard. It's not that it's easy. It just feels, oh, okay, this is something I can do.
I'm really glad you said that. And I'm going to link to, there is a group of podcasters called the Refrigerator Moms, and they did an episode on pathological demand avoidance. I'm linking to what they call the Refrigerator Papers, because when they do an episode, they have a longer article all evidence-based with research behind it. And I thought it was phenomenal. One of the things they said is 2 bad choices. That's the hardest thing. It is so hard. You don't have good choices, and you're trying the best you can. And we want to come at this with incredible compassion, but it's not as sexy, all right, what we're talking about. It's hard work. It's hard work for the parents. It's hard work for the kids. And I just want to say that it's okay to try the best you can and not be perfect at it.
Totally.
Right?
It's also
one step forward, 2 steps back.
Right. And it's also okay to say, I don't even, like I was saying about the Lord of the Flies thing, like I don't know that I'll never take a break from mainstream schooling. I don't know if my kid will always do everything mainstream. I don't know. It's not saying that you only can do it one way. It's more about this narrative of the only way to regulate my child is to, provide them complete removal of their stressors, and that's the way that I have to support them. That's the only way that this nervous system piece can move forward and heal and all of that. And I think that is a slippery slope. That's really what it is. I think that if you come at it with, look, this school placement that I'm in right now isn't working. Okay, we're going to take a break from that. I mean, even Kirk, who we talked about, who I don't know if I can talk about other people on the podcast. I mean, you just did, I guess.
Yeah, you can.
So,
Yeah.
This wonderful calm
Plus
parenting.
connect me to him, please.
Yeah,
Plus connect
calm
me to him,
parent
please.
podcast, who's also just started the PDA parenting podcast. Kirk, he talks about removing his child from mainstream school. It's not like because it wasn't working for him. We're not here to say there's only one way. That's not what it is. It's more the slippery slope of believing that the only way to the other side is removing all of this. The demands from your child is the only way that they're going to be able to regulate or eat. Like it's just too extreme. This is, yes, a subset of people, yes, but the idea that it has generalized in this way, that is what is scary. And all the self-diagnosis, it is really hard to go back and forth with people when they say, so I don't is the answer to that. But when they say like, well, you don't have lived experience and there's no evidence that shows that for PDA, but there's no evidence that shows it on either side, because like you said, we don't have studies. So we have to talk about it. We have to talk about the alternatives. We have to talk about the options. We have to have conversations about it.
We absolutely do. I think that's a really, really important point. And I want to say about schools, we mentioned authoritarian. Many schools are authoritarian, and that will make these kids worse.
Yeah.
And you're the parent. Take them out then, or find a better placement for sure.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing as avoidance. I don't think we have to. We're going to backlash. We're going from authoritarian to permissive, popping right over to that authoritative.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish we had schools that were, using more responsive parenting, teaching type approaches, because true responsive parenting is authoritative parenting, right? The problem is what's become mocked as gentle parenting is not that way.
Right. That's the thing about all these words. And that's why, even though I am on social media and I am using it as a tool for myself, for marketing and for getting out there and all of that, it is a very difficult space to watch. It's hard with all the words. People really want to recreate things like words, programs. Like I'm on social media and I am selling evidence-based programs. Like I sell only evidence-based programs. I don't make up my own programs. I don't. And I'm not saying everyone who does is wrong. Like I think that there are some wonderful people on there creating wonderful things based on evidence. So like I get it. But I just want to tell people, hey, these programs exist. Like, want to do them with me? Like,
So I'm gonna just add another note of compassion here, and that I think the problem with responsive parenting as it's portrayed, and the reason we get the mockery of gentle parenting, is because it's not realistic. Idealistic, it's not realistic, and it's creating this intensive parenting culture for which we get backlash.
Yeah.
And I don't blame any parent of a neurodivergent kid. Anyone. I am one of those. That I could go to you and say, I can't do this.
Yeah, totally.
There's theory and reality, and I think trying to get your brain out of the idea of perfect parenting, which is a total myth even for a typical kid, and how much more so for a neurodivergent kid, and say, let me figure out the best that I can do. And it will have good days and we'll have bad days. It's okay.
Yeah, totally. I agree. It's all of this. I hope too many people didn't leave during the rant.
We freaked them out
during the rant, but all of my work comes from a place of compassion towards parents.
Right.
It's not at all. I understand. I mean, there's a whole part of space where you say to parents, people accommodate their kids out of love, out of compassion, out of care, because one of my slides is like, people accommodate their kids because you're a good parent. Good parents accommodate their kids because it comes from a place of empathy, compassion, survival, biological need to protect your kids. Like this is you are driven to do this. We just have learned a lot about how growth has to happen through the discomfort. And so when we overly protect, that's when we kind of steal their growth. We kind of say like, no, it's okay. It goes back to, we talked about the older kids that I don't love to use. Failure to launch is the word, so we're just going to use it. But the older, adult children that we work with parents of adult children too. And it's, at what point did we accidentally steal their opportunities for growth by kind of trying to protect them? And that came from a place of love, but that doesn't mean it was effective. But it's not out of evil. There's very small subset of people that are actually trying to do harm to their kid. I've never really had that come up. For me, it's always out of fear or love that people do this.
And I don't believe it's ever too late, although I think earlier
Oh,
is
no.
always better. And I want to say also, we want to talk just a minute about appropriate scaffolding as opposed to inappropriate. And I think the difference is to get to the just right challenge. We're not asking parents to ask kids to do what they can't do. How do you know the difference? What's appropriate scaffolding?
So I work really hard with people to figure out the need versus the anxiety. So an example that I have come to is you might have a kid who, there's so many examples. One could be the sensory piece is a good place to think about this. You could have a kid who really feels true pain with loud noises. And so an accommodation for them could be headphones or something to dull. But the line would be, we wouldn't have them not go to school. We wouldn't have them not go in their class at all. We might have it be shorter. We might have it based on where they're sitting. They could sit closer to the door. They could have the appropriate, sensory accommodation. Another one with sensory is, kids who only want to wear certain fabrics. That doesn't bother me. I'm like, okay, but we don't want them not to be able to leave the house because of the fabrics. This is the line. So I'm always thinking about what is the need. Same thing with if you have a kid who has selective mutism or social anxiety and you're working on not constantly speaking for them, you might write down, if they can read, you might write down what they should say. So that's an accommodation. That makes sense. But you're doing it for someone who in the moment can't think, but we're trying to help them practice the skill of speaking. And so to me, the appropriate accommodation would be giving them something to say so that they don't have to also use their brain to come up with that, but not constantly speaking for them. Or breaking up a task. With social anxiety, it might be like you're saying if you're ordering at a restaurant, you're ordering one thing, but they're ordering the other. Something like that. So it's like, what is the need and what is the anxiety? And how do we break that apart?
And it might be on a ladder, like a hierarchical ladder.
Totally.
Each kid would be different, right?
Yeah. And I think about it is, I guess the question I would always ask, is this helping your kid access something or is this helping your kid avoid something? So if an accommodation is helping you access something, that's making their world bigger. If an accommodation is helping them avoid something, that's going to make their world smaller. And that to me is a good barometer of, is this accommodation appropriate?
It may be very difficult because your kid may have a good day or a bad day. On one day, they may be able to do something and another day not. And it's really hard to know. So just to be compassionate again for parents, it's okay to be getting it wrong. That's how you learn, right?
Yeah. It's all trial and error. That's what we're doing.
And tolerating your own uncertainty, right?
We're very uncertain. I always say all anyone really wants is a crystal ball to tell them that it'll be okay.
Right. I can fix this.
Yeah.
You can't always, and being able to accept your child where they're at and tolerate where they're at and then help them move forward, I think is the goal. And I promised you we'd be done in time, so I'm going to let you go. But I want to thank you so much for doing this with me.
It was
Thank you,
fun.
Robyn.
I'm really glad. Yes.
It was. I'm so glad. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Kids Matter. Raising healthy, happy children takes a village, and I'm grateful you're part of ours. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with another parent, grandparent, teacher, or anyone who cares about kids. Together, we can build the supportive community our children deserve. I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future topics at kidsmatterpodcast@gmail.com with no explanation point. Your voice truly matters. Until next time, keep advocating for the children in your life because kids really do matter. They are our future. I'm Dr. Elisa Minkin, and this has been Kids Matter. Please note that while I am a pediatrician, I am not your child's pediatrician. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. For any medical concerns or decisions, please reach out to your child's healthcare professional.